Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Yusika Slahen. In this video, I will discuss podcast. This segment is from an English communication course, and I will discuss what a podcast is on its types, benefit, and how to make one podcast. Okay, the first definition of podcasts. Podcasts are audio recordings that can be listened to by the general public via the internet. However, podcasts can be implemented at any time and can be listened to via various interesting electronic media. And usually, this podcast is done in relaxed but serious manner with interesting question from the host. The second type of podcast. One, podcast interview. The first type is a podcast where the host will conduct interview session with different guests or source in each episode. One example of a podcast interview is on Deddy Corbuzier YouTube channel. Two, a solo podcast. The second type is a podcast promoted by the host himself or a monologue. The purpose of the solo podcast is to convey an opinion, share information, or conduct a question and answer session where carried out by the host and listeners. 3. Multi-podcast host. The third type is a podcast that has more than one host. The purpose of multi-host podcasts to our discussion and have different opinions and perspectives to develop more interesting discussion. Okay, next discussion. The third, how to make a podcast. 1. Determine the right theme. The way to create a podcast is first make sure to first determine the theme or topic of discussion that you want to develop. 2. Prepare tools and material. Then prepare all the necessary tools and materials for the manufacturing process. It is best not to use the built-in microphone on a laptop or computer. 3. Create content according to the specific theme. After determining the theme and preparing the tool in such a way, the next thing that needs to be prepared, creating or scripting for podcast recording. 4. Use editing software. There are lots of audio editing applications that you can use, such as Audacity or Adobe Audition. 5. Carry out the upload process. The final way to create podcast is to upload the audio result that have been complete. Don't forget to add some important information such as title, series, description, category, and others. Okay, the last discussion, benefit of podcast. For listeners, podcast will currently be useful as a way to learn. Listener can learn from the information obtained while listening to podcast content. Apart from that, podcasts are also protected from various kinds of annoying advertisement. And for me, the benefit this podcast is our entertainment because, in my opinion, many podcasts are serious, but there are also lots of jokes. Okay, thank you all. I hope this discussion video that I brought is useful for all of us. Thank you.